I want to share with you a clip from one of the coaching sessions I had this week. The student was struggling to understand why life seemed to go from easy to extremely hard, hard for a while, and then things would get easier, and then again, that progress would happen. We talk about the concept of how when you're working to build a business, it's similar to if you're trying to level up in an RPG. Here's the clip.
No, you're not imagining it. That pattern is one I've seen consistently across all the businesses I've built, not only in business, but also I notice when I've set very ambitious personal goals, that pattern is there. There's a few different reasons why that exists. I mean, the first one is it just comes down to the compounding effect of the way skills work. So when you learn a new skill, it's not a linear projection. It's that learning the new skill gives you the ability to understand the environment, understand the challenges that you're facing in a bit of a different light. So that skill that you learn actually has a compounding effect. It's less of a linear progression and more like compound interest, where the interest gets added to the principal, and now the interest you get isn't just based on the principal, it's based on the principal and the interest that was previously applied, right? So as you learn new skills, as you push yourself towards accomplishing goals, the previous goals start to stack up in this exponential manner where progress seems to occur quicker, but the difficulty of the items you face next are a little bit higher. And then there are these trends where it kind of goes up and then kind of stagnates for a bit and then goes up, almost like a like a staircase, but not a typical step, more of a exponential jump, and then a plateau, exponential jump, and a plateau. Another way I can explain it, do you play any RPGs or a D&D and stuff like that? Okay, yeah. So wow, World of Warcraft is a great example. You know how kind of when you first start out, getting from level 1 to level 2 is a little bit easier. Then level 5 to level 6 is a little bit harder. 10 to 11 is much harder, and kind of you go through this exponential curve. There are some aspects that are a little bit grindy, where you just have to do a high volume of stuff, and that also happens in your business. But that's not so much what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the difficulty where when you're trying to solve a challenge, or in World of Warcraft, for example, when you're trying to defeat a boss, the amount of health and maybe strength or capability of that boss is much higher than where you are. Now that tends to happen in real life as a byproduct of what I mentioned earlier, with the skills having that compounding effect, right? Where the first few times you're learning the base skills, it's a little bit easier. The basics are a little easier to understand. But then as a result of you understanding the basics, whenever you're posed with a basic problem, you're able to accomplish it or overcome it with next to no effort. So you don't acknowledge those challenges are still there. Those problems are still being overcome. Just like, again, you look in an RPG, when you have to fight low level minions, doesn't matter, 2 or 3 seconds, you're able to defeat them. You don't even register that you have to do that. As you get further along in your business, there are more complex challenges you need to solve. Business is literally just a series of challenges. The better you solve those problems, the more value you can create, and subsequently, as a result of creating more value, the more value you can capture. Which, I mean, again, money is one example of value transfer. So in those situations where you feel like things are getting a little bit harder, I challenge you to look at it from the perspective of, if you are playing an RPG, does it seem like things are getting harder just for hard sake, like you're just going in the wrong direction, you're trying to beat your head against the wall? Or does it seem like there's a incremental progress, that challenge that you're facing is incrementally a little bit higher than the last challenge you faced? Or if it's not incrementally, is it substantially higher? And if it's substantially higher, that could be an indication of a boss fight, some challenge that you need to overcome to level up yourself, to be able to level up your understanding, level up your experience, level up the way your business operates. I look back to when I first started my businesses, and there's this very consistent trend that occurs as you go through different phases. I've even seen it in dozens of other businesses that I've worked with. So the first change is barely noticeable. It happens at around the $100 to $1,000. So when you're trying to make your first $100 versus when you're trying to make your first $1,000, then the next transition happens when you're trying to sell a single packaged item between $1,000 and $10,000. So the way you sell that $1,000 item, it needs to be a little bit different than that $10,000 item. The step after that is 10,000 to 100,000. Again, the 10,000 to 100,000, the way you package it, the way you present it, the way you communicate there's value is much different than that $100 or even $1,000 item that you're selling. Step after that is about at around $1 million. That, again, you have to fundamentally not so much reinvent, but you have to fundamentally reassess major parts of your process, tweak it and change it. And then again, that happens at around 2.5 million, 5 million, 10, 50 and 100 million. And this is something I'm sure there's lots of entrepreneur interviews out there you can see where they describe, going from 1 million to 2.5 million. They fundamentally had to reassess how they conducted business. They had to fundamentally reassess what the nature of their business is. As you get higher up, it's more about systems. Lower down, it's more about processes and quality, right? So when you scale, it's almost like, when you're trying to deliver $10,000 projects, it's not as important to have massive systems with governance and oversight. Now, when you're delivering, $10 million projects to your customers, governance and oversight is critically important, right? So that analogy of looking at it, like an RPG, is, I think, a very applicable way to look at business, because it's literally, as you develop more skills, you're able to overcome those challenges faster, which means you're now able to push yourself and tackle new challenges. So you kind of have this progress. Does that make sense?
I hope you found that clip useful. Do you find life is like an RPG? Do you find that your skills compound over time and things go from hard to easier to hard again? If you do, let me know in the comments.